In this session, we're going to walk through the basics of Google Forms. And you can use Google Forms in a variety of ways. You can use Google Forms as a survey tool to collect data from your students. You can also use it as a quizzing tool or an assessment tool, because once you create a form, the data that's collected on the form will automatically be generated for you into a Google spreadsheet where you can take a look and analyze the data that you've collected. Students can also use and create Google Forms of their own in Drive to collect data from classmates or outside sources in terms of if you have them working on a research project or a math project and you need them to collect data, they can also use forms as well. So the first thing we're going to do is just walk through how to create a basic form. And I'm going to go into my Drive and click Create and choose Form. And this is going to generate an untitled blank form for me to start working with. So the first thing it's going to prompt me to do is to choose a title and a theme. And right now my title is Untitled Form, but I'm going to call this Tech Savvy. And this is a survey that I'm going to give my students at the beginning of the school year to assess what they know about technology. And you could do this at the beginning of a unit to assess what students know already about certain topics within a unit that you're studying. So if you're starting a unit on life cycles, you might create a form that students can fill out before you even start teaching them about the life cycles to collect data on what they already know. So you can use it as a pre-assessment tool, as a survey tool, as a mid-assessment tool, and as a post-assessment tool. So as I walk through this video, you'll be able to kind of understand and apply what I'm talking about to your own teaching practices and say to yourself, oh, I could use it in this way, or I could do this, or I could apply it here. And that's the whole point. So what we're going to do is choose title and theme, and my title is Tech Savvy. And I'm just going to choose a sample form. I'm going to stick with something that's pretty basic, and then I'm going to click OK. Now I don't actually see the template here. It's just a basic form, and I can show you in a minute how to view the live form. So let's just take a look at the toolbar here, and there are a few things that I want to point out to you. It's very similar to the toolbar that you use when you're in Drive, when you're in Docs. You can add collaborators to the file. They're going to allow you to send the form. And some of just basic housekeeping things here to rename the form. You can copy it here, move it to a folder, trash it, you can download it, or you can print it. There are some editing tools here, undo and redo. You can view the live form, okay, and you can also do that just by clicking here. You can also insert things into the form, such as images, grids, page breaks, even videos, if you'd like. We're going to stick to the basics today. If you want to further examine that and play around with images and videos, you can do that. You can make beautiful forms with these tools. So right now it's telling me that I have 0 responses to the form because I haven't created it yet. And now I'm accepting responses. So if I click here, it's telling me that I'm not accepting responses. So when I'm done with my assignment and the form it has been sent and completed, or if there's a due date on the form and I don't want students to be able to respond anymore, if I click here in my Drive, I will stop the responses, and students will not be able to access or to respond to the form. So right now I want to accept responses. And there are other tools here too, a script manager and a script editor, and of course help. So let's just add a few questions to our form, and I'm going to start this. This is something that I already have created, but I want to just walk you through how to actually create a question in the form. So right now I have an untitled question, and my first question is going to be, how many hours do you use technology daily? And my help text is going to be on average. Help text is any text that will add a description or something that you want underneath the text, underneath the question title to help explain or elaborate. The question type. So if I click this drop down box, I can choose from a few types of questions. So there's just a basic open-ended text question. There is a paragraph text option. So if you want students to be able to write a paragraph. Multiple choice, check boxes. You can create a list in the question, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute for students to choose from. A scale, a grid, date, and time. We're going to concentrate on the first few here. So my question type is going to be not multiple choice, but text. So now students will be able to enter their answer here in the text box. So they spend 3 hours using technology, they'll be able to type it in here. So when I'm done, I click here, but I want to make this a required question. So that in order to complete the form, students will have to answer this question. If I am done, I click here, and there's my question. Now, I can, one thing I forgot to do was just create a description for my form, and that description is going to be an assessment or survey of what students know about technology. So I've created this question in my form, and if I need to go back and ever edit it, I can just hover over it and click on the edit pen, and that will allow me to edit it if need be. If I want to make a copy of this question or duplicate it again, I can do that. So if I want to duplicate it, and then I'll actually show you this. I've just duplicated that question, and maybe I want to make the answer choice type here, choose from a list. So I've duplicated that first question, but I can also modify it if I want to. And if I want to delete the question, I just click the trash can here, and it's gone. So I'm just going to add one more item for you. So to add an item to my form, I click Add Item, and I ask my next question, and that is which social media platform do you use most? And I'm going to actually create a list here. And here are my options. Just a few here. And if I want to remove an option, I just click the X here and it will remove it. And then I just click on the option here to add a new option. And then click Done. Now, if I want to view the live form to actually see what my students will see when I create it, I just click here, View Live Form. And there's the actual form that my students will see. One other thing you can do is you can actually, and I'm going to actually go into the document that I've created in Drive previously, and this is the actual full survey that I've created. And what I did first was, before I even started with my questions, I created a question here, and the question was just name. And that way, students will, it's a required field, students will have to type in their name. So when the data is generated on the spreadsheet, the first column of the spreadsheet will be the student name. So then I can see who answered what to each question. So when you create your form, the very first question you want to create might be name, and then just make it a text response so students can just type in their name. The next way I'm going to utilize Google Forms is to actually create a book list, and this is a way to show you how to utilize forms to use in your classroom for basic housekeeping things that will assist with and make your life a little bit easier. And this specific example might not apply exactly to your situation as an educator, but you can, as I describe it, kind of take in what I'm doing and the process and see how it applies to you individually. And I'm also going to show you in this example how to share out a form. So we're going to create our book list, and if you are a teacher, a classroom teacher, and you hand out textbooks at the beginning of the school year, you know that you need to somehow keep track of book numbers, who has what book in case it gets lost, and the condition of that book, and then you need to collect them at the end of the school year. I'm going to show you how to create a easy way to keep track of your textbooks by using forms to then generate a spreadsheet. So first thing we're going to do is add an item, and this is just going to be a very simple form, and the question title is going to be first name, because I want the student's first name, and the question type is text, and I'm going to make this a required question and click done. I'm going to add another item, and that's going to be last name, and once again it's going to be text, and it's going to be required, so I'm done here. Next I'm going to add an item, and I'm actually just going to show you something interesting that you can do if you want to in forms. So underneath I'm going to add an item here, and I'm going to add an image. And this is great for visual learners. I'm actually going to add an image of the book that I'm keeping a list about. So I just typed into a Google search here, Houghton Mifflin Social Studies. And this is just an example. And I can click on the image, and it will add it to my form. And I can add a title here. I can add hover text if I want to hover over my image, or then I can go back in and change or delete my image. So then I'm done. Next I'm going to add another item. Now if I click add item here, what's going to happen is it's going to default back to the image. So I want to click off that, and I want to actually click my down arrow here and click text. So now it will give me another text question. So my question title is going to be book number, and I'm going to keep that text so students can type in their book number. Click done. I'm going to add another item, and the question title is going to be condition. And for this one, instead of doing just a text answer, I'm going to do a multiple choice, and I'm going to make option 1 good, option 2 poor, and I want to add another one here, new. So I'm done. I'm going to click that, and I'm just going to view my form by clicking View Live Form. And this is what my students will see when they view the form. So they need to enter their first name, enter their last name. They can see the book that they need to actually refer to, type in the book number, and click the condition. And then they submit it. So there's that form. Now I'm going to actually show you how to, I'm going to click off that, and I'm actually going to show you how to share or send the form. So if I click send form here, it's going to give me the option to share a link, so I can actually share this link with my students. I can share it via Google+, Facebook, Twitter if I need to, and then I can also send the form via email. And what you can do is just create in a spreadsheet a list of all of your students in your groups of emails, and copy and paste that in here, and then you're going to send. So I'm actually going to send it to myself, to my student account, and I'm going to do that right now. And it's going to actually ask me what response destination I want. Now, what Google Forms will automatically do is once students start entering data or answering questions within the form and completing the forms and submitting them, their data will be converted to a spreadsheet for you. So what you want to do is choose new spreadsheet if you want that book list to be created in a new spreadsheet, or you can add the data in an existing spreadsheet. Now you probably will more frequently choose new spreadsheet, but you may want to continue adding data to an existing spreadsheet. So if you're doing a long-term assessment and you're doing it in pieces, and you create a form that you administer at the beginning of the school year that you want your students to fill out. Let's say you do a beginning of the school year assessment in math, and then you create a form and the students complete it and it's generated into a spreadsheet, and then you wanted to use that same spreadsheet in the middle of the year to collect data and assess them for a mid-year assessment, and you wanted to add it to the same spreadsheet, you could do that. Right now I'm creating a new spreadsheet, and here I can unclick always create a new spreadsheet because I want to be able to have that option. I can also choose to keep my responses only in forms, which is just being able to view the individual student forms and not have the answers generated and created in a spreadsheet. But I'm going to bypass that because I want to create my spreadsheet. The other thing I want to point out is you can also invite other editors to the form by adding them here. This is called Add Collaborators. You can also embed the link somewhere if you need that to be like on your website or in a blog. You can embed that link by clicking Embed. You just need to paste the HTML in there. And so I'm going to send this form via email. So I'm going to go to my student account, and you'll see that since I sent it in an email, it's not in my drive quite yet. I have to actually retrieve the form from my Gmail account. So here I am in my Google account, and I'm going to actually click here, and this is the form that my teacher sent me, the book list, into my Gmail account. And here it is. I can actually just fill in the form right in the email. So that's what I'm going to do. And I can enter my data here. My condition is poor, and then click submit. So if I actually go to my drive page, I can actually see a few things. First, I have the actual Google form here that I created, and I know it's a form by this icon. And I can also see that now there's been generated a spreadsheet which shows me the book list responses. So if I click on that, I should be able to see any responses that have been created, and there you go. So Rochelle's student actually went in via her Gmail account and answered the form, and it time stamps it, so it tells me when she did that. And here are my questions: a first name, last name, and book number, and the condition. So now I have a list of all of my books, numbers, all of the students, and the conditions at the beginning of the school year. The final thing that we're going to do with this session is actually create an assessment and take a look at the results and the data that you collect from the assessment in a variety of ways. Now, before we created our Google form and we emailed it to our students via their Gmail account, you can also share the link with your students so that they can complete the form and return the data to you. We're going to actually create our quiz or our assessment in a new way, and that is via a shared folder. So what you want to do is create a folder, and we're going to call this folder American Revolution Form or Quiz, and then we're going to create it. So now we have the folder created, but we don't have any sharing privileges assigned to it yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to Share, and we are going to share the folder with students, but we're only going to give them viewing privileges, because if we give them editing privileges, they will be able to go in and actually edit the form. We don't want them to do that. We want them to only be able to see the form and respond to it. So I'm going to invite people. I'm going to use my student account, and this is very important. I'm actually going to just change this to Can View, and then I'm going to unclick Notify and click OK. And now I'm done. So now my American Revolution Quiz folder is right here, and you'll notice that now there's a little person there, so I know it's shared with view only sharing rights. and there are no files in here. Well, I'm actually going to create my form within the folder so that students just have to go into the folder from their own Drive site, and they'll be able to click on the form and actually take the quiz from their folder. So to do that, I'm going to create the form, and it's asking me if I'm sure I want to create it in a shared folder, and I do. So create and share. And here I have my untitled form. And this is going to be we'll call this Declaration of Independence quiz. And I want to choose something very basic, just simple. And I'm going to add some questions. Now, the first thing you want to do on your quiz, and this is very important to remember, especially when the data is generated to spreadsheets, is you want to make sure you make the first question always name. So on the spreadsheet, you'll be able to see the student's name. If you want to break it up and create one question and have it be first name, and the other question be last name, you can do that as well if it's more organized for you. So I want to make sure that my first question is name, and it's open-ended, so they can type their name in here into my form. So the first one is going to be who wrote Declaration and I'm going to create a multiple choice. And that's that. Click done. I'm going to add an item. Who wrote his name? I'm going to make this, I'll show you a list. Okay, done. I'm going to add an item, and I'm going to write who is this man, and I'm actually going to add a picture here. And I'm going to search. And I'm done. I'm going to add an item. I'm going to change it back to text. And my last question will be in what year was the Declaration signed? And then I'm going to leave that open-ended. Okay, so my form is essentially, my quiz is essentially done. I am accepting responses. I want to just take a look at what the live form looks like, so what my students are going to see. There it is, there's the quiz. And if you remember, I actually created this in a shared folder. And I shared that folder with my student account. So if I go now to my student drive account and go to shared with me, I will see that folder right there that my teacher created for me. And this says American Revolution quiz, so if I click on it, there's my quiz. If I click here on the form, I have view-only privileges. So I'm not going to be able to edit the form, but I can see what my teacher created, the quiz that she created for me. And there it is. So now I'm actually going to take that quiz. So who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Who signed his name in large letters? Who is this man? I'm going to write George Washington. Incorrect. In what year was the Declaration signed? So there's my quiz. Now I'm going to submit it. And I go back to my teacher drive and just refresh here. And go back to my Declaration of Independence quiz. I'm going to choose a response destination. And I want it to be in a new spreadsheet. And you'll see I already have some responses. So my student account is accepting responses, and I have one. So I'm going to view responses, and it automatically pops up my spreadsheet. Now, instead of going through and correcting quiz after quiz on paper, what I can do is just take a quick look at my spreadsheet and use the actual spreadsheet as a grading tool. Just take a look at. So I want to just point a few things out. First of all, there's a timestamp so you know when the form was submitted. You also have the student name here, and you have each question at the top of the first row of the spreadsheet, so you can refer to that. And then you have each student's answers listed under that question. So some of the tools that you can use in spreadsheets, and I'm just going to talk to you about one that you might use more frequently, is you actually want to be able to. Now the last and final tool I want to show you regarding Google Forms and spreadsheets is you sent out your quiz via a Google form, you gathered assessment data which was converted into a spreadsheet. You can use that spreadsheet and use that as a grading system. And you can also view your data in a very summarized and concise way. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Now, I've only had 2 respondents to the quiz, but you can imagine that this spreadsheet would be filled up with many more names if this were an actual quiz. So I'm going to go to where it says Form and Show Summary of Responses. And what that's going to do is actually take the data that my students submitted when they took the quiz or survey or whatever you have administered to them, and you can actually see the responses in a chart form. So it will actually break down the responses via each question. So who wrote the Declaration of Independence? It will tell me what percentage of students answered Ben Franklin, what percentage answered George Washington. So at a quick glance, I can just look at that specific question and look at my percentages, and I can very easily assess whether or not my students have mastered that concept or actually know who wrote the Declaration of Independence. So if there are a lot of wrong answers and a lot of students chose John Hancock, that might be something that I go back and address to the class. There are a few pie charts up here. It will, any text answers, it will list here. And then it will take and create a line chart based on the number of daily responses. So that's just an additional tool that you can use in Google Spreadsheets to help you analyze your student data and pinpoint where your students need help or where they're successful.